Most importantly, what a beautiful day in the great city of Brownsville, Texas. It's Friday. Everyone looks like you guys are ready to head home already. Is that how it is? No. No? You guys are ready to go to work? Perfect. That's actually the answer I was looking for. But ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and begin our program. Buenos días a todos, bienvenidos. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to ask once again, good morning. Good morning. Yes, so, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed members of our beautiful community, good morning to everyone. Buenos días a todos, bienvenidos. It is with great pleasure to welcome you to Friday with the City. We are excited, and forget that my voice might be running somehow, but we are very excited to welcome everyone. And quite frankly, we're also very excited to continue to have this partnership and the ability to partner with our friends from BCIC and UTRGV ECC. They've opened their doors kindly and graciously to welcome all of you today. What a great jewel that we have, and what a great e-bridge center that we have here that continues to fulfill dreams of our entrepreneurs, to build them, to give them the resources that they need to house them and prepare them for what entrepreneurship is all about. So, quite frankly, as a Chamber of Commerce, we're very appreciative of them opening their doors to us and allowing us to bring everyone together and learn more about what's happening in our city. For those that may not know me, my name is Esme Villarreal. I am the President and CEO for the Brownsville Chamber of Commerce. And as always, it's very exciting to welcome everyone to this informative session. Today, we're mostly excited to speak to you about the developments in the city of Brownsville and in the Engineering and Public Works Department and city street repair projects. Today we gather to discuss the vital progress and initiatives that will undoubtedly shape the future of our beloved city. Our community has always held a deep commitment to progress and growth, and this event serves as a testament to that dedication. The Engineering and Public Works projects underway are a testament to our city's relentless pursuit of excellence, ensuring that our infrastructure remains resilient, efficient, and well prepared to meet the needs of our residents. The city street repair is a tangible representation of our commitment to enhancing the quality of life for all citizens, are a significant step towards creating smoother, safer, and more accessible avenues for travel and commerce. These efforts underscore our determination to create a Brownsville that is not only pleasing but also highly functional and sustainable. Throughout the session, you will have the opportunity to gain valuable insights into the intricacies of these projects, the vision driving them, and the positive impact they will have on our community. Our speaker for today is here to provide you with a comprehensive overview, answer your questions, and share their expertise on the development that lie ahead. I encourage everyone to actively engage in today's discussion, to ask thoughtful questions, and do leave this event with a deeper understanding of the remarkable transformations occurring in our great city. Thank you everyone for your presence today, as your participation reflects your dedication to the growth of and prosperity of Brownsville. Together, most importantly, we're shaping a brighter future, not just for us, but for the future generations of Brownsville, Texas. And I am very excited to embark on this journey with each and every one of you. Also with us today, before we move forward to our presentation, I would like to acknowledge the great, fierce, and unstoppable first female city manager, and I don't get tired of it. It's a true representation of progress and evolution in this great city. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our city manager, Helen Ramirez.
I go after a fierce Chamber of Commerce leader. What I want to say is many of the projects that you see, some are reconstruction, so multi-million-dollar projects that we contract out, and others are our crew. You know, our crew, they give themselves names, Hot Shot Crew, and they're very proud of the work we do. So we actually just buy material, every year, and they really stretch our dollars. So I'm very excited, and as we know, the potholes, the striping, all that is so important for economic development. So that's important to be able to grow our economy. And who likes to drive a street that really, fronts some of our major hotel chains as well. So in terms of economic development, it's very important that for the first time, we're passing a certificate of obligations of almost $30 million, which is a lot. Almost half of that is just for roads. So just to know that there's a prioritization there. But I really wanted to thank the whole department for all the work they do every day. It's hot. We remind them of the brakes. You know, sometimes I'm like the safety. I get nervous. You know, when I see that. But I know that we try to take care of them as best as possible, and just want to thank them for all the work they do. So with that, really, Dodo, it's about you. Thank you, and the department.
Doroteo's ready. Let's do this. But before we do so, I also want to take the time to thank the great leadership that we have in our local Chamber of Commerce, as well as the great partners that we get the opportunity to work with, learn from them, and grow together. So with us, we have our Chairman of the Board, Mr. Avi Schwartz. Thank you, sir, for being with us. We appreciate you. Aplaudanme. Also with us, we have one of our other board directors, Cynthia Burlet-Pisali. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you. And I have the great pleasure of always, and for those that know me, you may think I'm repetitive, but I do so because I truly believe in collaboration, and I believe in recognizing our team members for their hard work and everything that they do for us as an organization. I have the pleasure of working with a great set of women, talented and young, that carry our vision and our mission strong every single day. They wholeheartedly work for our business community. They were with us through pandemic, not pandemic, and as we move forward. So with us today, we have Astrid, we have Danielle, Hanya, and Melissa. Thank you for all that you do for the Bronxville Chamber of Commerce. We appreciate it. And for those that may come to these events, and you know, my job, and of course as Helen, our goal is to educate you of what happens also not just here in front, but also behind the scenes. These type of events take collaboration, they take hard work, they take communication. So I do want to take the time to thank the great communications department from the city of Bronxville. Ladies and gentlemen, they're back there. Thank you very much for all of you. So now that I think I've acknowledged everyone, you know, it's my great pleasure to introduce our guest this morning. Doroteo Garcia Jr. is the Director of Engineering and Public Works for the city of Bronxville. He's a licensed professional engineer in the state of Texas, a certified floodplain manager, registered accessibility specialist. He earned his Bachelor of Science from the University of Texas at Bronxville, Texas Southwest College, UTB-TAC for those that may remember. Dodo has been working with the city of Bronxville for 21 years and has previously served as a city engineer and overseen numerous construction projects for the city, and has been integral in the development of the city's capital improvement plans for several years now. Mr. Garcia is actively involved in the following professional organizations: American Public Works Association, the Texas Floodplain Management Association, Accessibility Professional Association, and National Society of Professional Engineers. He's also active in the community. Currently, he's the president for Hooked for Life Kids Fly Fishing, active board member of Bronxville's Money Clinic and University of Texas System Chancellor Centurions, past president of Leadership Bronxville and Bronxville Rotary Club. And I'm sure it keeps going, right? Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Doroteo Garcia Jr. of the great city of Bronxville, Texas.
I think that's the first time I get such a formal introduction. Thank you for the nice welcome. I'm really excited to talk to you about the projects that we have going on today in our great city. One of our biggest efforts that we've been focusing on at the city is exactly what I'm doing here today, is the communications, the bringing it out to our community of the great projects that we have. You know, I've been with the city for 21 years, and a lot of the time we get criticized for not telling the public what we're doing. They find out by digging in, or because somebody called Channel 5 or Channel 4 and there's a news reporter talking about our streets. So this is a great opportunity for myself to begin this outreach. Just this year we began advertising. This is a copy of some of our billboard signs that we're putting up on our streets. We usually put them up about a month before the projects start, which is something that the city has never done before. We always put door hangers on the affected homes that are going to be facing the projects that we do, But sometimes that's not the best form of communication, and there's no repetitive communication with them throughout the project. If they want to know how much longer it's going to take, what's going on, they had to call into the city. So another project that we've developed is our story map. If you see the QR code here, this gives you, currently when we started it, it only gave you the projects that we had coming up for the year. One of the things that we're looking to do for this coming year is, I really hope that's the right link. Yeah. In this coming year, one of the things that we're looking to do is update the projects and actually have status updates of where the projects are at. Last year was the first year we rolled it out, and it was more of an information tool. This year we want to use it more as an interactive tool with our community so that they can engage and see what's happening, where the project is at, what are the issues that we're having, and have periodic updates. Eventually, it'll grow into a larger platform where we can really get into the detail of the projects. One of the other things, that I heard our city manager mention was the economic impact of our streets. It's really important. I was talking to a member here in the audience, on East Loop, and the importance of having the designation of a heavyweight corridor on that particular segment of road, because it makes such a huge impact to the commercial traffic and the types of loads that they can convey on this corridor. For the streets that we work on, it's more local streets, not necessarily these larger projects that we combine with the county or our RMAs and MPOs, but our local projects, it's, the life of your car. Your car with the potholes obviously endures some damages. Aside from that is the quality of life. If you have a road like Old Highway 77, I'm sure many of us, avoided or try to find alternate routes, which at most times, it's not necessarily the shortest route. You end up spending more gas. The traffic synchronization is not something we're going to touch much on today, but the amount of time you spend at a red light is important to us. The city has invested a lot of money in synchronization and is continuing to go after grants for synchronization. It's sad to say, but at least we have Boca Chica is probably one of our most synchronized streets right now. We're actively working on Price Road. That'll be the next corridor that you'll see being synchronized in the next 6 to 12 months. So those synchronization projects are important because it reduces travel times, and the same thing goes for the quality of roads. Aside from that, the benefit of these roads, it encourages people to develop on nicer roads, and it encourages more traffic on these roads, therefore more people come into the businesses. So it's really important for us, and you'll see in the presentation today, a lot of our focus in the past was on residential streets, and now you'll start seeing some of our commercial streets or collector streets that convey a lot more traffic. Usually we stayed away from those projects because of the cost associated with those projects. Another thing that I would like to add or talk about is how we select the streets. I think that's really important for our community to know that it's not just, oh, let me call, and it'll get to our list. Back in 2013, we decided to get a little bit more sophisticated on how we analyze our streets. We did our first data collection for what we call a pavement condition index. This is the equipment that was utilized, and it basically tracks, there's 16 cameras that take digital imagery of the whole street, and it determines the types of cracks, the types of failure, how long the failure is, the limits of it, so that we can get better data and conditions of our roads. When we completed this the first time, we weren't surprised at the results, but it really gave us an actual metric of how bad our roads really were, or how bad we thought our roads really were. Because once we start comparing this metric to other municipalities, we realized that we're not that bad. The average standard for what they call pavement condition index for a municipality ranges between 30 and 40. We're on the higher 40s when we started. Right now, we're really close to 50% of our streets being in good to fair condition. We did complete a study in 2013. That was the first one. Then we completed a second one in 2020. The purpose behind that is obviously in the city we're limited in staff, and we wanted to see how much improvement had taken place in 7 years, and we were getting ready to do an additional bond program in 2020. So we wanted to make sure that the streets we selected were selected with current data. When we did the comparison, we had about a 6% or 6 PCI grade improvement from 2013 to 2020. What does that mean for our community? Obviously that we're doing a better job at maintaining our roads. 21 years in the city here, and the first 10 years I can tell you we focused on reconstructing roads. We didn't do a lot of maintenance, the basic maintenance. We've had programs throughout the years, but it's really challenging to keep those programs going. One, because we're overwhelmed by our number one complaint in the city, potholes. That's the city's priority. It's always been their priority is fill potholes, fill potholes. We have one crew that is all they do all day long. And I've been trying to break away from that slowly to have a maintenance crew, because we're never gonna finish the potholes if we don't maintain our roads. Maintaining our roads are the processes of when you see that a lot of people call it, they just painted my road. Well, that sealing and the cracked sealing that you see along the roadways prevents water from going into our roadways. And the prevention of water is what extends the life of our roads, reduces the number of potholes. And then, it's kind of counterproductive, right? Because, why do so many of our streets flood? Well, our streets are designed to hold water whenever our streams or our ditches are overwhelmed. Why do we hold water on our streets? Because we're in a flat part of the world. If we don't hold it on our streets, it's going to be in our houses. So we have to make those concessions. So a lot of the roads that we design, the first 7 to 9 feet of the edges will be full of water. Of course, sometimes we do have overwhelming rains and they get higher, but the intent is that you have the center lane of the road to drive on. Aside from the PCI, what other metrics do we take into consideration when deciding streets? We take the use of the street, the classification of the street into consideration. Obviously now we're putting a little bit more weight on the roads that carry more volume of traffic because it's important. Old Highway 77, we're starting to realize the benefits of the economy and how that generates more revenue for our city and our tax base because of the additional development. Then you have the environmental and utilities. This is probably, out of the 4 there, the one that changes our decisions on which roads we do. Why? Because if the road needs utility repairs, that just increased the cost almost by about 30 to 40% on most cases. And we'll talk about 3 different funding sources that we have for streets, which is our capital improvements. Those streets are full reconstruction streets. Those streets we do complete, what we call a complete street. And what does a complete street mean versus our regular maintenance? Is that we'll take into consideration all types of mobilities, not just cars. We'll make considerations for our bus traffic. We'll make consideration for our pedestrians, bicyclists, pedestrians, and any other alternate uses that will remove vehicles from our roads. The intent, in the past, you'll hear the term road diets, is reducing streets. I think the most common street that you can relate to will be Pablo Quisel. Pablo Quisel used to be 4 lanes, 2 going, 2 coming, and the congestion was really hard. It was really hard for for traffic from businesses to get in and out. So we changed it to 3 lanes, a center lane, 1 lane going, 1 lane coming. We had a lot of complaints that, there's so much traffic, but by doing that, it allowed traffic to be able to enter and exit businesses easier. You had a center lane to allow traffic to continue to move. So those little changes are the small changes that sometimes, we get the kickback as a municipality of, well, why did you all do this? And it takes some time for people to appreciate it. I think now we've gotten a lot more positive feedback from that particular change. The bottom one is the budget, of course. It always comes down to money, right? What we prioritize. And you'll see in the recent years, what we started doing as a municipality to maximize the use of our budgets is using our own city crews. I won't say it happened by accident 100%, but COVID had a lot to do with it. The staffing of our contractors, the availability of our contractors after COVID was very limited, so it required us to change the way we did our operations, and due to that, this is the first year, 2023, that our CDBG program, our Community Development Block Grant, and our internal funding for maintenance was done 100% in-house. The big difference is about a 30 to 40% savings in some of these projects. This is a table just that shows you the metrics of the value of our asset. We have over 800 miles of street in the city. If we were to rebuild every single mile today, you're looking at a cost of over $2 billion. It sounds shocking at first. When we have new commissioners come in, this is the first number that they always fact check us on because it sounds like, wow, that's a lot of money. You know, Old Highway 77 is probably one of the prime examples. You know, $11.5 million reconstruction project, and that segment of road is under 2 miles. So that gives you a cost of why some of these streets are so expensive. Other streets are obviously not as expensive, as you'll see as we go down through our presentation. So on the streets, anybody have any questions right now? I wanted to set a little bit about how we prioritize and select streets. Now I'll get into the actual streets. Go ahead.
I have a question. In regards to budget, you mentioned possibly 2.2 billion. Is this strictly funds that are to come from the municipality, or is there other areas that we can tap to gain funding?
On state roads, we rely on TxDOT. You know, there's the infrastructure fund that's out right now that you hear a lot. We also have the MPO and the RMA that assist us on some of our roads that, you know, combine different municipalities. And then we also have our local funds that we utilize. And in addition to that, we look for grants. The grants available for paving roads are very limited. But we will find a lot for like traffic synchronization. We will find for drainage. You'll see at the end of our presentation, I'll talk a lot about the drainage grants that we've gotten. On the roadways, a lot of the grants that we may get is for innovative materials, for trying new processes. It's not really for maintenance. It's really hard to get maintenance money for streets.
I'll start with one question.
Okay, go ahead.
You mentioned about starting a project and completing a project. I'm going to mention Owens Street,
Okay.
and I'm not going to pick on you or anybody.
No, go ahead.
I'm just my own, what I saw. I went a couple of weeks ago because I live and I usually go Sundays to pick up Oraco on Vera, so I take that as a shortcut. There's a lot of people do, as you're talking about eliminating
Yes.
all the traffic lights. I noticed that the whole upscale neighborhood was nicely done. So once you cross the bridge into the poorer side of Southmost, all that is caliche still.
Yes.
So why wasn't that completed?
So Owens is really complex because there's 5 projects going on. You have, on the Boca Chica side, we had a water line that was being installed, and that was done by PUB. They had a huge issue at the intersection because we have 2 major lines that interconnect there and a sanitary sewer force main that caused a little bit of havoc in the construction on that and delayed the actual intersection from Boca Chica to the bridge. That's one project. The second project is the reconstruction of the bridge that's right there that's being done by TxDOT. On that particular project, initially, it was just going to be a simple bridge replacement. Well, it got a little bit complex. We ended up having to buy property on all 4 sides to, one, widen the bridge. We changed the utility design and we did some drainage improvements. I won't get so much into the drainage part, but we're taking advantage of the resaca that's there so that we can provide that segment from Boca Chica to Four Corners floods pretty heavily. So we have one project that we're thinking of developing in that area to help that. So that's the second project. The third project on the side that you're referring to on the southmost side is the water tower. The new water tower was relocated for PUB. That required them to reconstruct the water line from southmost all the way to the other bridge on the drainage district ditch. That segment is still under caliche because there's still another utility repair that'll be taking place. Once that is complete, all of that will get repaved. The water tower was probably, I'm gonna assume it was completed already. I just was there last week and it looked like all the work had been done, but I can get you an update on where that is at. Then the fourth project that comes with that is that bridge there is looking to get improved now. We're working with TxDOT to see if we can get some funding so that we can repair that. And then the fifth one would be the overlay of the complete street for Owens Road from Southmost to Boca Chica. But the paving of that complete road on our end is probably not going to be programmed till about 2027, which is more or less when we estimate all of these projects completing.
My thing is, you added caliche,
Yes.
and we're talking about potholes. Instead of laying oil on it to make it solid.
So this is temporary right now. What's there because of the pending utility repair that's coming in. And they didn't want us to pave it and then go back and tear it up in another month. The paving of that segment, I think, would be completed probably by, what do you think, Carlos, early 2024? Right, more or less? Yeah. Yeah, well, no, if we put oil on that, you're going to have it tracked all over the place. It'll be on people's cars. So we won't put oil on it. We'll leave it just the limestone or the caliche dry. We'll go wet it once in a while for the dust. But putting oil to it and letting people drive on oil, that's not, we'll get more complaints of people's cars. Yeah. But I can definitely get with you afterwards and discuss it further. Now I'll get into the actual projects if there's no more questions. For this particular year, the number that you hear is $12.5 million, right? So I'll give you a quick breakdown of the $12.5 million. For 2023 fiscal year, we were given $4 million. For 2024, we were given $8.5 million. The 2023 funds became available just recently, even though we've already started doing the design work on a lot of the projects that were funded with the 2023 money. The 2023 money included design work of our roads. For 2024, our highlight project is Old Highway 77. The city's portion of that project is $8 million, and we're estimating about a $4 million utility cost for the installation of new water lines, replacement of sewer lines. And then on the city side, what are we doing? We are replacing the Old Highway 77, the current 2-lane urban street, rural street, to a 3-lane urbanized street. It will have a 10-foot sidewalk on the commercial side of the corridor. On the residential side, it'll have a 5-foot sidewalk. On most of our streets, what we're doing is having, on our complete streets, our CIP streets, is having a 10-foot combined use bike trail pedestrian sidewalk, and then the 5-foot pedestrian trail. In addition to Old Highway 77, one of the things that we are doing there is large drainage improvements. Typically, when you go from a rural road to a urbanized road, you're going to see the street get lowered. It'll get lowered probably anywhere from 12 to as much as 24 inches. We have to do that because of the way it drains. So that's always one of the first criticisms we get. Why did you all lower the road? It didn't flood before. The roadside ditches in the past were full of water. When you urbanize the streets, that's the most common practice, so that the cost is managed. In addition to that, we will be having turning lanes similar to Pablo Quisel to allow the flow of traffic. You can see at many of the intersections on Old Highway 77 on the dirt where the cars drive around through the dirt or while there's somebody parked. So that'll be some of the improvements that we have on Old Highway 77. And this will be from 802, or where the Taco Bell is at, all the way to Morrison Road. It'll be the complete street. And then we'll be doing a stagecoach trail. This is from Morrison Road to Alton Glore. At the intersection, you will see some construction on Morrison Road, because if you've driven on Stagecoach Trail, sometimes it's a little bit hard to see to the right-hand side if you're taking a left on Stagecoach Trail. We're going to raise that a little bit so that the line of sight can be a little bit better and you can see further down onto Morrison Road. I think depending on how much traffic increase we get, that intersection there, we have looked at it to put a traffic signal. It doesn't warrant it at this time. But I'm sure as development continues to grow and the density continues to increase in that area, it's likely that we'll see a traffic signal there. Yes, sir?
Before you go further, on the Highway 77 project, the old 77,
Yes. It'll be remove and replace, yes.
yeah, because that's too major.
That's one of the biggest costs, yeah. So the reconstruction of our roads, or the projects you see here, this is complete reconstruction. We go We remove everything that's there all the way down to the subgrade, to natural dirt. Natural dirt, we make sure that that base layer is workable. We'll come in, set limestone. Usually the thickness varies depending on the traffic we're moving. Our minimum is 6 inches. We've done as much as 12 to 15 inches in our city streets. This particular street, I don't know the exact cross-section. I'd say it's probably going to end up around 10 to 12 inches just because of the traffic volume that we have. Then it'll have our asphalt layer, which is our driving surface.
On those pieces of concrete that are going to be taken out, has any consideration been given into the project for the reefs building in the Gulf?
So they usually utilize clean concrete. Clean meaning it doesn't have rebar. One of the things that we're doing is we're at our landfill, we're looking to get a concrete crusher because of the volume of concrete we have already at the landfill, but the volume that we're going to have from this particular project, we feel that it will be sufficient to justify buying a concrete crusher and using this material for our roads at our landfill. On Stagecoach Trail, like I mentioned, will also be a 3-lane road from Alton Glore to Morrison Road. And then we have Wild Rose, which will be from Bernard Road all the way to the curve at Honeydale. And that'll be a complete street as well. All of these 3 streets will have sidewalks and bicycle trails outside of the roadway, okay? We're scheduled to start Old Highway 77 probably about the middle of next year. For the other 2 projects, we'll hopefully begin by the beginning of next year. And all these 3 projects are funded. Here you can see the location of these roads. I think for these particular roads, most of you all in the room would be familiar with because they're pretty heavy transited roads. This is our in-house street program. Every year the city or our department receives $3 million for this funds the operations of our crew, and depending on how much additional funding we have is usually the cost of our crew operations is about $2 to $2.2 million. It varies from year to year, but the cost of the roads that we have for this coming year is $773,000. You can see the list of streets that we have proposed. I'll leave that up here for a little while I speak about this project. So these projects in the past, we had a contract. We still have a mill and overlay contract. This is just a surface reparation. We basically remove the existing asphalt and replace it with a new layer of asphalt. So the roads that are selected for this type of funding are roads that are what we consider in a 50 or higher PCI rating, meaning, what do you see? If you have very heavy potholes, we may look at it, but we will do spot repairs before we repair it. Usually you'll see some small cracking on the street or just shoving. If you start seeing shoving, meaning like a rut, we get a lot of ruts on our residential streets from our trash trucks. That's our biggest damage to our streets that's caused by our trash trucks. They're the heaviest trucks that we have on all our streets. So that's why for us, managing that contract is really important to make sure that they're not running overweight. On this particular type of repair, you're looking anywhere from about 2 weeks to complete a project to a month. The projects that take a month are projects that are needing a lot of curb work, that have a lot of sags throughout the road that require spot repairs. But for the most time, one of the things that we've done different, and you'll see, I'll put the map out now. That's the map for the first set of streets. And the streets that we do on these projects, before I was at Public Works, they would try to do as many streets as they could throughout the city. I found that not very efficient, one for our crews, because they'd finish one street, they have to get all the equipment mobilized to a different spot. So one of the things that you're going to see different now is we're focusing on a neighborhood. We're going to go into one neighborhood and we may spend 3, 4, 5 months there, but we're going to repair every single street that needs repair in that area. And at the same time that we're there, we're going to repair any street lights, street lighting that's damaged, any street signs that are damaged. Go back in. If there's some gaps on sidewalks that we need to repair, we'll go in and do all of those repairs so that, one, it's more noticeable, two, it makes a bigger impact on our residents. And then the next step after doing this program, I'll kick in the main streets that go to these neighborhoods so that by the time we're done, that's a brand new neighborhood. Most of these neighborhoods that you see that we touch with these monies are streets that are or neighborhoods that are probably from the 80s, 90s, 2000, the time that they were built. That gives you an idea of the neighborhoods that we focus on with these types of funds. Then we have our CDBG program, Community Development Block Grant. This is limited to the streets that we select because they have to be in our lower income areas that qualify for this type of program. So you'll see a lot of this funding being utilized in District 4, District 2. We do have occasional streets in District 1, but believe it or not, in District 1, the southmost area, there are some areas that do not meet the criteria. I think one of the biggest streets that we're doing on this program this year is Mackenzie Road. Mackenzie will be done from Central to Iowa. And that road, if you drive down Mackenzie Road, it's probably just as bad as Old Highway 77, except we don't have the money to do a full reconstruction on it. We categorized it into our mill and overlay program, but we will be doing several repairs on that street before we proceed with the construction of it. And I'll put the map out for that one. And you can see as the difference in the maps, you see a little bit more of a cluster in the neighborhoods. The other thing that I can tell you of our street funding mechanisms, right? So we get money at the beginning of our fiscal year, which is coming up, October 1st. Then usually we'll get a mid-year budget adjustment. And during our mid-year, it just depends on our budget, how much money we get, but typically we've been able to match usually the initial allocation. That's about how much we end up getting in the mid-year budget as well. Why do I mention that? Because a lot of the questions that we get are, what's the list of streets? Where can I find if my street is next? Historically, we used to put out a street list 4 years out. And we found that to be very challenging because the streets that were in year 3, 4, a lot of the times had to get reclassified because of the length of time we waited. The road was in further condition that we couldn't use those funds adequately. Or it needed utility repair. So some of the streets would get removed and then we'd deal with the citizens. Well, you had my street here, now you pushed it back. So now what we do is we have our budget allocation, then we put our mid-year budget adjustment, and then we have a list of streets that are eligible for funding if there's additional funding available. So we have a list roughly about 1.5 to 2 years, and we always have more streets available than we do money. But that's how we program our street projects so that if funding becomes available, everybody in the public, when we present our budget, it has our budgeted streets that we're shooting for, if we have a mid-year budget adjustment, and then we have a separate list of streets if additional funding beyond that becomes available. So, I don't know if y'all have any questions of the proposed streets. Go ahead.
I do. I don't know if it's relevant to today's content yet. We've experienced that we've seen more pedestrian or bicycle owners encountering accidents through these street, projects and renovations. Is that something that it's done through the City of Bronzeville to create bike lanes, or how does that work?
It's a combination of, one, we have a pedestrian and trails master plan. So that was studied for the whole city. That's what we go by on dedicating these trails that are on the street. The other thing that we're looking at right now is as more of these trails have been popping up throughout our city. Now we're almost over 70 miles of on-street share roads or bike trails. And how do we manage that, right? What can we do different? Because we are running into the issues that by ordinance you're allowed to park on these areas. But there's some areas where it's excessive, the amount of parking, and we don't have sidewalks. When we have sidewalks, the pedestrians and the bikers have that alternate, but when we don't, it's what can we do to make them safer? So those are some of the challenges that come with the complete streets. I mean, there's a lot of benefits though to complete streets. Obviously with the health issue that we have in our community, we're all aware of the health issue. That's a big plus of having these trails. In addition, it's the safety. The narrowing, it's been studied and proven that the narrower our road lanes are, the slower people drive. And it's not like a 10-mile difference, but people are more cautious on their driving, so that makes the road safer. So that's why the city has gone on a big push for complete streets. It's more expensive, but it creates the amenities that are needed for the city, and in addition to that, the safety that comes for our citizens, and of course, the benefits of having alternate modes of transportation for our citizens. Yes, sir.
I want to compliment you on the complete streets. The buffer between the sidewalk and the street is a great big advantage for the safety of pedestrians. They feel a lot safer when there's that little buffer, a little, just a little bit of area between that and the sidewalk when they're walking and stuff like that. And it makes a big difference. You mentioned McKinsey. McKinsey's also going to include curb and gutter.
No. No. That's why we have it under our mill and overlay program, because if I were to do curb and gutter, I mean, I would turn a $150,000 project into probably about $1 million, $2 million project.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that's a big issue with you guys. Some of our older streets they use bar ditches and stuff like that in order to get the drainage.
Yep.
It's really difficult to include drainage in all of the street projects and stuff like that. But I guess we got to figure out a way to do it in the future somehow, because some of these streets are getting increased traffic, and they do need that.
You'll see on our CIP plan for the 5-year look ahead. On our capital improvement plans, the large construction projects, we do have a 5-year plan, because those streets typically take that long to fund. The streets that we have on that project, on that funding for design right now, are 14th Street. 14th Street is a street that's, once again, rural. We're looking to urbanize, heavily commercial. We're estimating about a $10 million project. That one's slated to begin construction if funding gets allocated 2026. Then we have Coffeeport Road. Coffeeport Road is another rural road that is dying to be urbanized. But that project, you're probably looking at about a $20 million project. And that's not doing entire Coffeeport. That's just doing from 802 to Old Port Isabel Road. And that project, we have it slated for 2027, 28. We're having a combined funding of budget years to be able to fund these large projects. So that's why these other mill and overlay projects are really important, because if we focus all our funds on capital improvement projects, you all would not see street improvement projects. Our citizens would be like, hey, what are y'all doing with my money? We're doing one street, because that's how large these projects are.
On those major streets like that, like Coffeeport that used to be 802, is MPO and stuff like that, we're not eligible for any funding help from them?
It's challenging.
For those things that we inherited, basically?
Yeah, it's challenging. We can definitely look for it. I'm gonna skim through this because I know I got about 5 minutes left on my presentation, so I'll talk a little bit about our current projects that we've completed. You've seen the list up there. This is what we completed for last fiscal year. You can see the 14th Street, Coffeeport, Old Alice that I mentioned. Last year we paid for the design of all of these projects. A lot of the times we get criticized, why do we design something if we don't have the money to build it? There's infrastructure funds available that we're looking to apply for once we have that opportunity, and we're very hopeful that we can land some of that funding to fund some of those streets that you see under the 3.6. Under the 1.84 and 1.85, that's our general fund money and our CDBG money. Those are the streets that we completed for this year, and those projects are all complete. These are other projects that we completed this fiscal year with capital improvement money. These were streets that were also full reconstruction. I'll leave that up there for a little bit, and I'll start talking about this next slide, which should be our drainage projects. We do have a lot of funding from Texas Water Development Board. We have 4 projects that were funded in 2019, which includes the Impala pump stations. The Impala pumps probably drains about 70% of Brownsville, or helps drain 70% of Brownsville. That area is combined watershed, so some of the water can be drained elsewhere, but when we do turn on these pumps, we do have the ability to drain or alleviate flooding for 70% of our city. That'll be a project that will be in conjunction with the East Loop, and these are 4 pumps that we have. They'll be upgraded. They're over 50 years old, and these pumps will be rebuilt with new pumps. And is that another slide that I have with streets? Yeah, I'll leave that up there for a while. We've done a lot with streets, guys. I mean, I can tell you 20 years here, we really have done a lot of projects in-house and with some of our contractors. It's really impressive. The Impala pump station draining is the top project. You can see that project is the 4 pump stations that we'll be placing in addition to the 4 pumps that we have there that eventually will end up replacing those pumps. So by the time we're done, we'll have at least 6 pumps out there. I mean, it's more than 4 times our pumping capacity than we have right now. The SCADA culvert improvements, that'll be crossings in Resacas that you'll see that particular project. I believe it's 7 or 8 crossings throughout the city that we're going to be replacing, and that's once again to improve the flow of water. The Southmost Water Plane Park, even though it says Southmost Water Plane Park, that project's specific to Four Corners. It will help Four Corners specifically. I'm not going to say it's going to fix it, but it'll help it. By helping Four Corners, it does help a lot of our southmost area. And that's how we were able to get funding for that. And that's why the name of Southmost Water Plane Park, because by removing the water from Four Corners, it'll reduce the flooding as well in the southmost area. The West Brownsville Drainage Project, this will help Garden Park area and 17th Street to the south in West Brownsville by our old PUB power plant. All of that area there, we will be installing a 72-inch box culvert along our recently built trail. Don't worry, we won't tear up the trail. We were a little bit proactive and placed the culverts underneath the trail before we started that project. Then the second set of funding that we got from Texas Water Development Board, we just completed our watershed study. That is required by Texas Water Development Board so that we can apply for additional funds. That project highlights 10 flood areas that affect the most residents. Those areas are not only in Brownsville, so when you see that report, 6 of them are in Brownsville. There's one that's still questionable if it's going to be Brownsville or Los Fresnos. 2 areas in Los Fresnos, 1 in Bayview. It does include what they call the watershed, HUD 10 watershed. Then the second set of funding that we have is for, again, the lining of the ditches that go to the Impala pumps. We're going to concrete line these ditches because what good is it to have new pumps if we can't get the water there quick enough? And then the other one is having additional culvert crossings or Resaca crossings on streets that we're going to be increasing sizes. You'll see a lot of it is to move water quicker to the pump stations. And our final one is USGS. That project, a big portion of it is complete. I'll share the link with you so you can send via email, but you can now see the rainfall in 6 locations throughout the city. And not only the rainfall, how much the water goes up in our ditches, the volume of water that goes through our ditches, so we have more metrics so we can better provide drainage projects for our city. That concludes the I didn't thank you to CMD. Thank you to CMD for the presentation, right? I was looking for a picture of my crew. But that pretty much covers anything. Yeah.
Tell them about your crew.
Our crew, so we have 2 paving crews. One of them, what they call our hotshot crews, what takes care of all the potholes and utility repairs. And then our paving crew consists of about 14 men, and they're the ones that do all our paving with the in-house money, which this year was also the first year on CDBG. We typically just get reimbursed for the work and materials. This is the first year that we're also getting reimbursed for our labor, so that's a savings to our taxpayers as well for that. One thing that I would also add really quick is, okay, we have a CRS program. It's a community certification with FEMA. We had a big issue with FEMA about 2 years ago that it was 2019 when we had the issue with FEMA that they changed our maps. And if you lived on a Resaca, your flood insurance went from $400 or $500 to $3,000, $4,000 because the maps were wrong. And FEMA's way of fixing it was like, well, just fill out this form and tell us that the maps are wrong, and they adjusted it. Well, in addition to that, what we are now doing is we will become a certified community. There's certain criteria of documents that are required when people obtain building permits, and that you build your structure certain feet above the flood zones. And we will now be certifying our process that we have been doing for the last 3 years, so that our residents who purchase flood insurance will receive a savings. Depending how high up on the scale we rank is the savings. Right now, I figure it'll be about a 15 to 20% savings. What does that mean for our community? A savings of about close to $500,000 to $750,000 for our community, for our residents that have flood insurance. The biggest perk about that is the awareness. We do live in an area that floods. We're bound to flood if we get a heavy rainfall. I always tell our residents 4 inches we can handle. It's still scary, but anything above 4 inches, it's going to cause some heavy flooding. So it's important for our citizens to have flood insurance, and this program will make that flood insurance more feasible to some of our citizens. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be around if you all have any questions. Thank you. Thank you.
What a great presentation. I believe that everyone learned so many new things about our city. I do encourage and I challenge everyone to go out there and tell our story. You have the ability to be present today and educate yourself, educate your employees, your company, your clients, your vendors. It is our job as a constituent of this great city to make sure that everyone has that sense of proudness and also takes full ownership of who we are. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, I want to thank, of course, our partners, the City of Bronzeville, to our City Manager, Helen. Let's give her a great round of applause. Thank you for being here. Also, the Communications Department for the outstanding work that they do every single day. To my team, to our partners that welcome and open their doors to Abridge, BCIC, and UTRGB ECC. At this moment, our program concludes. Have a wonderful day, and God bless you. Thank you very much.